Welcome to the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel, our first live show of the season. We're doing a Bracketology Q&A today as it is Friday, February 20th. What makes this important? Tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern time on CBS, the selection committee is going to come together and reveal their top 4 seeds, so the protected seeds as it would stand right now. That's going to be 12:30 Eastern time tomorrow on CBS. So today's show is going to look like this. I posted a bunch of stuff on Instagram, posted even on a YouTube post, which I didn't know you could do, did that, and got some questions for bracketology purposes. So I have a full field. We're going to talk about the top seeds first, and we'll talk about, the full seed list bracketology while answering all these questions going through. I'm not going to talk individually about each team. I'm just going to go through the questions and then pull up the appropriate, graphic that we're going to use. I am going to use a lot of the BartTorvik team sheet, which I'm actually going to pull up right now. And you can actually go find that down below in the description, or just search up BartTorvik.com. He's got a lot of good stuff on there. So the graphic will look something like this. This will be your top teams just sorted by the net as of right now. And we will also use another one when we talk about the bubble. All right, without further ado, let's dive into it. I'm going to pull up the top 4 seeds because this is where our first question is going to be. And this is going to come from Playing Devil's Advocate Pod, who is always listening to the show. Really appreciate all the listening there. So this is from a YouTube comment, and then I'm going to go to Instagram. So if you're waiting for your Instagram comment, I will get there. Starting with Playing Devil's Advocate Pod, I still can't figure out who to make the last 2 4s in the first 5 between Virginia, Texas Tech, and Vanderbilt. So as you can see, this is actually how I have it in this order. I have Vanderbilt comfortably in. I don't really see the argument of them to not comfortably be a 4 seed right now. I'll pull up their resume metrics right now as we can kind of follow along with it. You can actually find them at number 15 in the net right now. So, I mean, across the board, they pretty much scream 3/4 seed. 16th in strength of record, 17th in wins by bubble is worse than the likes of someone like Virginia. I'll get to Virginia here in a second. However, their predictives are still really good. They're 12th at KenPom, 12th at Torvik. And what has me going is inside the first 2 quadrants. They're 13-5 inside the first 2 quadrants. Look at the rest of the team sheet. Michigan's on another level, but 13-5 is terrific for a 4 seed, in my opinion. I would have Vanderbilt right there. Between Texas Tech and Vandy, I'm not even going to act like I have any clue what the committee is going to do with Texas Tech, because I have no clue how they're going to seed them. I don't think they should be penalized yet because we haven't seen them play without JT Toppin. Obviously, that sucks. It's a crushing injury. However, it's obviously, I feel like it should almost, if they start struggling, then hurt which, I mean, I'm not going to predict it. I don't wish that on them, but it definitely could happen, and I think that's when it should be affected in terms of their projections. I don't think it should happen right now because they haven't played a game without Texas Tech. So I do have them as a 4 seed. I'm guessing that you also have that you would have Alabama as a 4 seed just based on this. And then Virginia, I'm going to talk about Virginia because a lot of people have been on me about having Virginia below Alabama. It's super close. You could very easily put Virginia inside the category. So just when we go back and compare these resumes yet again, just real quick. So you'll find Virginia at number 16, Alabama number 20 in the net. The strength of record for Virginia is 13th compared to Alabama's 12th. KPI, Virginia 14th, Alabama 12th. Wins by bubble, Alabama at 11, which is really good. I know they've lost a lot of games. What have they lost? 7 or 8 games or something. I know they've lost a lot of games, but they've played an incredibly tough schedule, kind of similar to Auburn. Auburn's played, we'll talk about them a little bit later. But they're 11th in wins above bubble compared to Virginia being 16th. You move over to the predictives, it's really close. You're pretty much splitting hairs. I know the big one that a lot of people are looking at for putting Virginia as the last 4 instead of Alabama is that quad 1A record at 4-0, which is really good. Alabama's 3-5. However, Alabama's 6-6 inside quad 1. Virginia's 5-2. Virginia with a better record percentage-wise, but, they say quad 1 wins don't really hurt you. It's not like the quad 1A is a separate metric than quad 1. Like quad 1A is a part of quad 1. So it's similar, very similar resume, just with what strength of record and wins above bubble is supposed to do is separate out, like, not all quad 1 games are created equal. Not all quad 2 games are created equal, which is why I give it to Alabama. I will say it is very close. If you're just strictly looking at the loss column, I think you got to lean towards Virginia a little bit in that situation, but I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Alabama right now, just being 11th in wins above bubble. That is really, really good. All right, let's get into some more questions. I'm going to go to Instagram. I see the chat asking a lot of questions. Really, really great there. So I will come back to those, but I'm going to give some of these people who commented on the Instagram first of the post that we did. Starting with Michael Kane. So I'm actually going to pull up the full seed list as of now. Michael Kane 9. How high can Villanova jump in seeds if they win out? So I did go and look at Villanova's remaining schedule. They obviously host UConn on Saturday. Really big matchup there. Then they do still have to play at St. John. So they have 5 more remaining games. Those would obviously be 2 high-end Quad 1A wins. You win both of those games, go 5-0, and run your way through the Big East tournament. There's no saying like a 17-3 Big East team who runs through the Big East tournament would probably be like a 3 seed, maybe 4 seed. If they were to win out, which is, it's unlikely, but we'll see. Probably like a fringe 3 or 4 seed in my opinion. Villanova looking like they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. Obviously I got them as a 7 seed right now. Would be very, very shocked if they climb towards like a 9 seed or a 10 seed. Looking really good. All right, next up, Ryan Dunbar. What is the Gators' ceiling if they win out and win SEC championship? Plus, he also asked how many games would the Gators have to lose, including the SEC tournament, to be lower than a 3. So I do have them as a 3 right now. I think they should be the first number 3 seed right now. It's just, I've said it before, it's not really fair to other teams, like say a 2 seed has to play them in the Sweet 16. It wouldn't be fair to say Iowa State. I think Iowa State is for sure your top number 2 seed. There's an argument for Iowa State to be a 1 seed right now. I'm going with Houston right now over Iowa State. There's an argument, but like say Florida was the last 3 seed, and I know there's bracketing principles and where you want to be placed or anything, but it wouldn't be fair for Iowa State to have to play them just based on their KenPom rank. I know their strength of record might not be as good as the likes of Kansas or Nebraska or wins above bubble. However, just with that, those predictive metrics are telling you how good this team is based on how they blow everyone out. I think they have to be the top 3 seed right now. So I'm sorry, went a little off topic there. If they were to win out and win the SEC championship, I don't know if there's really a path for them to be this would be like an all-time heater. This would basically just be like a going on your best judgment if you're the committee. Like if they were to win out, they probably should be a 1 seed. I don't think they would be. I think they would be on the 2 seed line, maybe first 2 seed, second 2 seed. I think like they've pretty much all but locked up the SEC regular season race. They do have, they got some tricky games. They still have to go to Kentucky. They still have to go to Texas, and Texas is playing really good basketball right now. I think if they go 4-1 inside in the regular season, no matter what they do in the SEC tournament, I think that they'll be on the 3 line. If you go 5-0 and then say you lose the SEC championship game, I think there's probably a pretty good chance for Florida to climb up to that 2 line, just because these predictives are telling you that this team is really good, and pretty much everyone I test is telling you that this team is also really good. All right, moving on, let's talk about Hometown Henry. Are we expecting more upsets in this tourney compared to last year? Same, less? I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see all 4 1 seeds yet again, because I do think this crop of 2 and 3 seeds this year is really, really strong. I think it's, I've kind of been saying for a while, I think we're going to see a 12 over a 5 this year. I think we saw, Colorado State last year. I know that was kind of a fluky 12 seed. Like that team was playing as good as just about anyone for a while there. But in terms of just like mid-major upsets, I don't know if we're going to see a lot of them this year, unfortunately. To me, there's just not that many teams that are that vulnerable. I'm gonna talk a little bit more here in a little bit about the most vulnerable seeds at every single or the most vulnerable team at every single seed. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more. However, I think we're going to see probably pretty much the same as last year. However, I don't think it's going to be as chalky of a Final Four. Like last year, our top 8 teams that made the Elite 8 were the top 8 teams going into the NCAA tournament at KenPom. So that's literally as chalky as you can be in the Elite 8 and in the Final Four with their being all 4 number 1 seeds. So I wouldn't quite expect it to be to that level, but I do think we're going to be a little bit hurt on upsets. However, I will say the injuries, which just completely suck, might produce a few more upsets. Texas Tech, obviously, just gutted for them and for JT Toppin. North Carolina with Caleb Wilson. Will Caleb Wilson be back? I sure hope so. BYU with Richie Saunders. Will he be back? I sure hope so. Will Kansas have Darren Peterson? Who knows? But I don't think it's going to be too upset heavy this season. All right, I'm going to jump over back to YouTube, and then we will get back to those Instagram comments from Sports Talk. I have Texas Tech as a 5 and the other two as a 4. Yeah, probably referring to that first question. So Virginia and Vanderbilt as a 4, Texas Tech as a 5. This could very well be the case tomorrow. It just depends what they're going to do with Texas Tech. I'm not sure. Ohio State Glazer Natty. There we go. That is a name. Ohio State fan here. What do we have to do to get in? It's simple. You got to win a quad 1 game. Last year, the selection committee faced a ton of, very public scrutiny because they put in North Carolina, who was 1-11 inside the first quadrant. Ohio State is right now 0-8. I would have Ohio State out right now. I'll pull up my bubble graphic as it stands right now. I would have Ohio State as the very first team out. I do have UCLA and TCU in just because they've proven that they can win games, quad 1 games, quad 1A games. I know TCU's lost a quad 3 game and a quad 4 game. I'm willing to sub that out for the quad 1 wins that they have. I'm actually, I'm going to pull up I put up the top 30 in the net according to that, to the team sheet over on BartTorvik.com. I'm actually going to pull up the next one, which is just a little bit of, provides a little bit more information as according to Ohio State. So as you can see, Ohio State, you can find them at 38th in the net. Their resume metrics are actually close. They're, where I just lost 44th in strength record, 46 wins above bubble. You want to be around 45-ish to feel really comfortable. So they're fine. Their predictives are fine. However, that big number, 0-8 inside quad 1, 6-1 in quad 2, 6-9 inside the first 2 quadrants. That's not great. Find TCU on here at 47, 4 quad 1 wins. That's a big difference. I know you see the quad 3 loss, quad 4 loss on there, but they've proven they can pick up these big wins. I don't think Ohio State's done enough to deserve it. From Sports Talk, I have Ohio State as my last buy. Again, if you're looking at the resume metrics, it very well could be. Like I said, I didn't think that win against Wisconsin would really boost them into the tournament, at least according to me. However, these bubble teams just keep losing. I know I say it pretty much every year. These bubble sucks. This is a whole reason to not expand the NCAA tournament. Bubble's not great. I think Ohio State is a better basketball team than even I'll say UCLA. I think they're better than, I don't know. TCU is kind of sneaky good. TCU could win a game in March Madness. That team's good. I think Ohio State is better than the likes of someone like a San Diego State, a New Mexico who's vying for a bid. But at some point, you got to do it. You have to prove that you can beat these high-end teams. Also from Sports Talk, we have the same top 4 seeds, except I have Gonzaga and Michigan State flip. Yeah, that's fair. I've seen a lot of people have Michigan State as a 3 seed and, Ohio State. We were just talking about Ohio State. Gonzaga as a 4 seed. So that's perfectly reasonable in my opinion. All right, from Caleb Fry, 6490. Any chance a team like Liberty or Belmont get an at-large if they continue to win and lose in the conference tournament? I wish the answer was yes, and I took a deep look at them because that's kind of been a storyline that we haven't talked about much. Liberty, their resume-based metrics are really good. They're 46th in strength of record, 50th in wins above bubble, 0 quad 1 wins, 2 quad 2 wins. They have 2 quad 3 losses. I don't think there's a chance, unfortunately. If you were to tell me, give me Liberty and Belmont, they don't win their conference tournaments, or someone like Ohio State, who we just talked about, I don't know. Maybe Ohio State's a bad example there because they don't have the quad 1 win, but I think a lot of people can agree that they have some talent. But if you were to give me someone like a San Diego State, or I guess that's a mid-major team as well. But I would like to see Liberty and Belmont get in. I'm kind of rooting for them to win their conference. I don't think there's unfortunately a path for them to get in at large, just with how the bubble is operating right now with this wins above bubble metric being included. And the committee is buying more into the likes of KenPom, of Torvik, of BPI, of these predictive metrics. So I don't think that there's quite a chance, but I really do wish there was, because I know I just talked about Liberty, but I love Belmont. I think Belmont is your best chance of a 12 seed to beat a 5 seed. This team's really good. From Random 600, outside of the obvious mid-majors of St. Louis and Miami of Ohio, which mid-majors do you think have the best odds to go on a tournament run? Just tying into the last question, if you were to tell me one mid-major to win 2 games and get to the Sweet 16, I'm picking Belmont. I've seen this Belmont team. The other day, hopefully people watched the Belmont versus Murray State game, where they were down double digits at half, and then they scored 63 points in the second half compared to Murray State scoring 31. It was domination. This team is big. This team is really good defensively. Everyone always thinks of Belmont as a team who can just knock down threes like crazy. They still can shoot, but that's not the identity of this team. This team's big Sharnowski down low. I like Belmont. I think they can win a game or two come March Madness. The popular picks, I will say, The 12 seeds I think are good, and the 13 seeds are also good. They always look good at this time because this is projecting the best teams in the tournament, or the best teams in their conferences to win their conference tournament. We know that doesn't always happen. So it always looks good right now. However, I will say, I think the 13 seeds are about as good as I can remember. If this is how it would stand, Stephen F. Austin is 17-1 in the Southland. High Point was like loved at the beginning of the season. They've fallen off a little bit as of late. Utah Valley has a really weird thing going on in their, they're like battling with the WAC because they're leaving the WAC, and the WAC's like trying to ban them from postseason play, which is ridiculous. Utah Valley's been the best team in the WAC, but they've got some firepower as well. There's been other notable things like Bethune-Cookman as a 16 play-in game that you can find on here, actually took Auburn to overtime. I think we have some options for good mid-major teams. However, I think just the top half of the sport, like the 1 through 3 seeds, I will be shocked if on this list, if this ends up being your teams, that any of them lose to a 14 through 16 seed. There might be some tough games, some closer games you might think. UC Irvine's been good. I had a good conversation with my guy Cully about North Dakota State. Who would they like to match up with? I think, sorry, Michigan State fans, Michigan State could be seen as vulnerable because they don't really kill you with their athleticism. And we saw them struggle with some mid-majors earlier in the season. Remember, they struggled a little bit with Oakland just because of their style. They don't kill you with athleticism, don't just dominate you. If they were to run into a really good three-point shooting team, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they can, I'm not going to predict that they're going to get upset, but anything can happen. All right, let's move on. A&M this from Jake Mitchell, 55-58. A&M as an 11 seed seems a little bit too far down, especially with how Auburn has been playing. I don't disagree, but I do basically just everything by the numbers. So I'll pull up that second graphic again. Texas A&M, I agree. I think this team, like even when they were leading the SEC, they were like a 8 or 9 seed. I don't know why their metrics aren't that great. They're 41st in strength of record, 44th in wins above bubble. That's like very, very bubbly. The predictives are pretty good. 38th at Ken Palm, 35th at Torvik. They're 54th in KPI, which is another strength of record. So if you see, Texas A&M on here at 43, right above them is New Mexico at 42. I have New Mexico first 4 out, like we talked about. They have the exact same average between, their resume-based metrics. Now, I always kind of look for a little bit of a fluky one. Like if there's a big gap, it always seems to be KPI and BPI. And I'm not trying to shut those down. They are on the team sheet, but I think those are your worst 2 metrics. So like Texas A&M has a severe disadvantage to New Mexico in KPI in this instance, which is why I do have, including the quad 1 wins, quad 1A wins, they're 3 and 5, they're 7 and 8 inside the first 2 quadrants. They just haven't played that tough of a schedule, which is the only reason I have them down as an 11 seed right now and why you'll pretty much find them there. Auburn is in another weird spot that'll kind of tie into our next question from Jake and with Justin here. What does Auburn's record need to be to get into the tourney? So I'll talk about them a little bit here. So you'll find them at 34 right here. They're 43rd in strength of record, 42 in wins above bubble. That's not that bad for a 14 and 12 team. Now, it should be noted, yes, they are 14 and 12. They played the toughest schedule in the entire country. I know some people will be like, well, you still shouldn't get in at 14 and 12. I'm not even going to all the way disagree with you. If it comes down to an Auburn or a Miami of Ohio, who do you give it to? It's 2 incredibly different resumes. So let's let me pull up the rest of their schedule. I believe I kind of went over this a little, or haven't gone over this, but I looked at it just previously. So they've lost 5 in a row. Not good. They're going down the wrong path. 5 and 8 inside the SEC right now. So you got Kentucky at home. That's probably a big one. You probably got to pick that one off. You're favored by 3 in that one. You go to Oklahoma, and I will say Oklahoma's the most underrated bad team that you'll find. They're not that bad. Like they're bad in terms of the SEC, but they're not that bad. This team can pick you off at any second. You get Ole Miss, you get LSU at home. You should win both of those games. You go to Alabama. You're not expected to win that game. You go 3 and 2. That puts you at 8 and 10 inside the SEC. I think that's good enough. I think 2 and 3. You better win your first game in the SEC tournament. If you go 2 and 3, anything worse than that, you're probably on the outside. You go 4 and 1 in these games. You pick off Kentucky. The only game you lose to is Alabama. You end up 9 and 9 in the SEC. That's good enough, regardless of what happens in the SEC. I would fully believe that, but we'll see. Stephen Pearl's got a little bit of work cut out for him. From Mikey Man, I think this is the year. The first 2 rounds are going to be a lot chalky like last year. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to happen. Just we've talked about how just great the top of the sport is right now. Like I said, the 1 seeds and 2 seeds are very, very close. I think they're all very good. Might cut it off at Purdue. Sorry, Purdue, to just catch a random stray there. Florida's really good. I'm really curious to see what they do with Florida and Purdue tomorrow, because I think if you ask pretty much anyone on the planet, they'll say Florida's better than Purdue. Purdue's has a better resume. Florida has better predictive metrics. We'll see. Moving on from Colin Farrick. If you could pick two teams, 13 to 16, to make an upset without knowing the draw, who would they be? So I'll just look at who I think the best teams are. I mean, obviously, like I said, the 13 seeds are really good. I'll kind of move on a little bit from that, because I would pick like probably Stephen F. Austin and Utah Valley. They're both looking like they're kind of some juggernauts in their league. I'll give you some a little bit deeper though. I always like UC Irvine. However, I don't think UC Irvine just quite has it this year. They have a bunch of size. But I just like, if they were to match up with like a Michigan State, who, like I just said, Michigan State can be a good draw for some teams. I think Michigan State would be a horrible draw for UC Irvine, just matching up strength for strength, size for size. Michigan State's going to beat you in that one. I'm not going to go with UC Irvine. I'll go down even a little bit deeper. Just 2 teams I like I would never predict them to win. I really like LIU and Merrimack as 16 seeds. I think these are, like, the MAAC is more competitive than you might think. And if Merrimack comes out of that, Merrimack's solid. Like, I would never pick Merrimack to beat like Houston or Arizona or something, or LIU. However, if they were to climb up to like 15 seeds and you were to get, an off night from someone, like, you really shut down, you get a Keaton Wagler game where he played horrible. It's not the craziest thing I would ever see, would never predict it, but I really like those 2 16 seeds. However, like to answer the question, I would pick Stephen F. Austin and Utah Valley. Both really good. Mitz Kwan, 10K. How can Texas A&M get in? All right, let me pull up the remaining schedule that they have. Like I said, in the bubble, so if we go to the bubble, I believe I have them as a last 4 bye team. Yeah, I got them as a second to last bye team. However, I will say, like, even from Missouri to USC, I think there's a really big gap right now. Santa Clara, like, I have as the last 4 in. This is kind of a year we need bid stealers. Let's knock like some of these teams out of the tournament. No disrespect, but I'm like, Santa Clara really hasn't beaten anyone that really means anything yet, other than St. Mary's. UCLA is just spiraling like crazy. TCU does have those couple losses. Like I said, I think they can be a sneaky good team. But like Texas A&M is comfortably in right now. I know you're going to see them on the bubble graphic. They are comfortably in. They're 8-5 inside the SEC right now. They're 18-8 overall. Their remaining schedule at Oklahoma, like I said, don't just skip over Oklahoma. This team's not bad. At Arkansas, you get home games against Texas, who's playing really good, home game against Kentucky, and then at LSU. So they have a difficult remaining schedule, just being, having a very back half schedule for SEC play purposes. It had a little bit of an easy start there. I think if you go 2-3, you're feeling fine. That would put you at 10. What would that put you at? 10-8 inside the SEC. I think that's probably good enough at worst to get you to Dayton, no matter what happens in the SEC tournament. You go 3-2, you're in really good shape. 11-7 in the SEC, the top rated conference at Ken Pom. That's definitely good enough, depending on pretty much no matter what would happen come SEC tournament time. Alrighty, from Rick McBride, the third, 75-89. You mentioned you had some thoughts about Bama yesterday in your video. What do you think about their chances to be a 3 seed? Like I said, I'm honestly going to wait and see on Alabama in terms of what the committee does with them tomorrow. If they're a 5 seed, if they're a high end 4 seed. So I'm not sure they can quite. I'm not sure really how to answer that question yet. But in terms of the thought I kind of had in yesterday's video, in terms of Alabama, because they're going to be a popular pick for people to pick them to get upset in the first round. So I have them as a 4 seed, whether you have them as a 5 seed. Say they're a 5 seed and even they draw the best 12 seed, which I believe is Belmont, or say USF. I don't think Alabama's going to get upset in the first round, just because their style of just playing so many possessions, it keeps them kind of upset proof, in my opinion. They've always dominated top end competition pretty much every single season. It was popular to pick Charleston over them a couple seasons ago. Alabama went all the way to the Final Four. This resume of this Alabama team is very similar to that Final Four team. This team I don't think it's as good as that Final Four team, although there are some similarities. It's not quite as good. And just looking at their schedule so far this season, they haven't lost to a team outside of the top They've lost to Texas, who's 28th at KenPom, but outside of the top 16 in the entire country, they've lost number 6 Florida, number 16 Tennessee, number 12 Vanderbilt, number 3 Arizona, number 9 Gonzaga, and number 8 Purdue. All these via KenPom. You know, they have wins over Illinois, Kentucky, Clemson, Auburn, Arkansas. Their style of play keeps them a little bit upset proof, in my opinion. I don't think this team is going to get upset in the first round just with their style of play. When you're playing so many more possessions than other teams, the talent's going to equal out. You know, if you're playing a low possession game, maybe this team can beat you in so many possessions, but if they were to play you in much more possessions, it wouldn't be an upset. It would just, you know, kind of level out to the talent of the playing field. That's why I don't think Alabama's going to get there. In terms of getting to a 3 seed, if they were to win the remainder of their games, which is incredibly possible, not a real tough remaining schedule, at LSU on Saturday. We'll see. LSU is a little bit scrappy. Then you get Mississippi State at home, should win that one. The big one's going to be at Tennessee. If you win that game, you're probably in good shape. Then you go to Georgia. Georgia's been scrappy, and then a home game against Auburn, which you're probably expected to win. You go 4-1 and then go all the way to the SEC championship game. You might have a good chance of being a 3 seed, but just with the amount of losses, that will be held against them a little bit, in my opinion. But they're still fine. At Calum, you skipped my question. Am I missing it somewhere? I don't seem to see it on here. If you could just retype it in, I will get there. I'm just going in order of these questions, how they came in. My apologies. All right, let's talk about Ohio State Glazer Natty. If VCU wins out in the regular season and loses to St. Louis in the A10 tournament, do they make it? This is a really good question. They obviously have the big one tonight at St. Louis. I don't know. I weirdly just researched this question yesterday because I was making the graphic for at St. Louis, and I'm like, I have VCU as my 3rd team out right now. So if they win that game, 3rd team out. So if they win that game, that might boost them in the tournament for now. I'm not sure even if they can still get there, even just with the amount of games that, it's going to be tough in the A10. They're probably, they obviously wouldn't match up with St. Louis again because this would be 1 versus 2. Who else do they have to play? They have to play at Dayton at the end of the season. That's not going to be a quad 1 game. That'll be a quad 2 game. You have a home game against George Mason, a home game against Fordham. That's not going to move the needle whatsoever. It's really close. I'm not sure. This would probably be about as 50-50 of a thing as I can see. I'm not 100% sure if they could get an at-large with only. It's really close. It's really close. I'll give this question about a 50-50 shot. All righty, let's move on to Colin Ferrick. I will get back to these Instagram questions in a second here, I promise. He says he mentioned it on Instagram, but what higher seeds fit the format to be upset? I'm an MSU fan and feel like we are the perfect candidate to get beat since we cannot shoot. Yeah, sorry. But I do think that Michigan State, like I said, if they were to play someone who can shoot lights out, just has a fluke game where they knock down everything, you get a little Jack Golke action or something like that, they could be a team. This was actually the question where, this was a question I was going to go based off of on Instagram, where I predict the most vulnerable seeds from every, or the most vulnerable teams from every seed. 1 seed, I'm not even going to try and attempt it. These 1 seeds are so good right now. 2 seeds, to me, it's definitely Purdue. 3 seeds, sorry, it's Nebraska. Maybe it could be Kansas if Darren Peterson doesn't play, but I'm going to go with Nebraska. Unfortunately, I think they're going to win a game. However, I think they'll be a popular pick to not make the Sweet 16 is what I will say. 4 seeds, I'm sorry. I know you're a Michigan State fan. I will say Michigan State just because of the struggles that they had earlier in the season. Like I said, they overpower you with scheme. They overpower you with their size. They don't just kill you athletically. And if they were to run into a really hot shooting night, I would say Michigan State. 5 seeds, I'm going to go with Virginia just because they've been squeaking by some games. And I think the other 5 seeds are kind of just dominant right now. Arkansas looks really good. Tennessee looks really good. St. John's looks really good. And then 6 seeds, unfortunately, it's probably going to be BYU just because they're without Richie Saunders. But good question there. From Sports Talk, the St. Louis play their way onto the bubble if they lose to VCU tonight. Also, how close is VCU to an at-large berth? Yeah, so I just talked about that one. Sorry, I know these questions are from a couple minutes ago, so hopefully I'm tying in some of these. But I don't think St. Louis is going to be on the bubble if they lose tonight to VCU. That game against Rhode Island, like, literally moved the needle not at all for me. I actually moved them from the last 6 seed to the first 7 seed. So I don't think they're quite going to get to the bubble. However, don't lose too many of these games. I think they're going to win tonight. I think it's going to be close, but yeah, I don't think St. Louis is going to get towards the bubble. They're really good. Their resume-based metrics are really good still. Playing devil's advocate, UVA, Tech, Vanderbilt was really tough for me. It is very close. The 4 seeds are about as close as I can ever recall. Like, I'm that's what I'm most curious to see with this committee tomorrow. Obviously, it's going to be, is it Houston or Iowa State as the last 1 seed? It even could be UConn. It wouldn't be the craziest thing if it's UConn. UConn's resume metrics still really good. And what we always kind of forget is they really value non-conference like wins that you had more than conference play. And UConn had a really good non-conference, so it wouldn't be the craziest thing. But my biggest one is, definitely those last couple 4 seeds: Vanderbilt, Texas Tech, Alabama, Virginia, maybe even Arkansas has a little bit of a case. Really going to be really, really close. Playing devil's advocate yet again, how much do you bake in top-level wins or wins away from home versus just pure team sheet averages and quads? For example, I don't see the elite wins for UVA to warrant the protect seed. Yeah, it's a little bit of the same thing here because Virginia is, they're 4-0 inside quad 1A. However, all 4 of those wins are away from home. However, they're not the most elite games. So it's all over the place. I like these resume averages. I think it's a very good tool to use just because the strength of record incorporates just how good that, they're ranked 30th in the net. So it qualifies as a fringe quad 1 game to quad 2 game if you're playing them at home. The strength of record really includes that, where that ranking is instead of just, hey, it's labeled as quad 1 through 30 is quad 1. So I do really like that. I still really do like that, those predictive metrics. From Fatherly Berry 57, do you think Texas Tech is still a good 4 seed even with JT Toppin's injury? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer is going to be for Texas Tech. Bamboy is obviously going to have to play a ton more minutes. And Christian Anderson is, if you're about to see anyone drop 30 points per game over the next month, it's going to be Christian Anderson. He is going to pop off. I'm not sure what to think about it. I got to see what they can do without JT Toppin. Grant McCaslin's a really good coach. It sucks without JT Toppin because this team legitimately could have made the Final Four, could have been a national championship threat. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're, like I said, I would have them as a 4 seed right now because it's what they've done to this point. I'm not sure if they would be considered a good 4 seed. Like I said, they'd probably be the most vulnerable in my opinion. All right, sports talk. I know Auburn has tournament metrics, but I have them as first team out. I can't put a team in that's won 53% of their games. I don't disagree. I completely get that argument. Like I said, it's going to come down to it. If Akron wins the MAC and Auburn is like a couple games above 500 and they're like last spot, Auburn versus Miami of Ohio. Curious to see it. Bandit, 2613, San Diego State, I'm guessing, keeps playing below their level, and it's disappointing me. Trust me, man, it is disappointing me too. I have a lot of futures on San Diego State this season. I thought they were the clear team to win the Mountain West this season. It is very, very frustrating. They were playing at a very high level. They were playing at a very high level on defense for a little bit here, and then all of a sudden it's like Grand Canyon just got them a couple times. And he also says if they played up to the potential, they'd be convincingly the best team in the Mountain West. I thought it was going to be a really good race between them and Utah State. Maybe it still will end up being that way, but to me, Utah State has just solidified himself as the best team right now. I don't know. All right, JV plays. I don't know if you heard, but Michigan has expressed interest in playing in Philadelphia over Buffalo. I did see that in the first weekend. If Nova is an 8 seed, puts them in the Midwest, it would be hilarious. That is true. Yeah, if Villanova were to match up against Michigan. However, just those two styles matching up with each other, I just don't think there's any stopping Michigan. The only way to beat Michigan is to shoot about 55% from 3 in the game against them and just draw those bigs out to the perimeter. And we'll see if Villanova could do that. But, man, that would be a very large but, yeah, that would be a little bit of a disadvantage for Michigan if they had to play Villanova. But would be a very large talent gap there. Also from Bandit, also could be wrong, but surely a 14-12 Auburn, who's 5-8 in the conference, shouldn't be a bye team right now. It's so hard to differentiate these teams. Like I keep using the example of them against Miami of Ohio. Who would you pick as in the tournament? Auburn has played the toughest schedule in the entire country. They played a really tough non-conference schedule, so that's where That's where these team sheet metrics are going to come in my opinion, because this is kind of what differentiates the two. They are still, like I said, 40th in KPI, which is strength of record metric, 43rd in strength of record, and 42nd in wins above bubble. That's very bubbly-ish, but usually, like I said, if you're inside the top 45, you're usually in decent shape. You'll also see they have played 18 games inside the first two quadrants. You can find them on here. Sorry, I got the wrong graphic pulled up. If you find them at 34th in the net. So 6-12 inside the first two quadrants, 4-10 in quad one. They played 14 quad one games. So that's the only reason that you'll see them as at least in my opinion, as a bye team right now. But they're going to have to win some games down the stretch, because if they're sub 500, no way is this team getting in. From JV plays, I get that Michigan throttled Villanova early. Oh yeah, I forgot they already played actually earlier in the season, but it would be a headache for them to play them in Philly. Yeah, I agree. Going based off of your last questions, yes, I would agree. From Sports Talk, is Florida a 2 seed if Indiana wins tonight? Yes, I think so. I think Florida and Purdue are very close right now in general. I do think they would flip if Purdue were to lose to Indiana again. From Ohio State, Glazer Natty, do we see a Final Four without any? Sorry, my computer is lagging a little bit. Without any 1 seeds this year, I feel like some of the 2 and 3s are better than normal this year. I agree with you. The 2 and 3s are definitely better than normal. I will be shocked if we don't have 1 or 2 1 seeds, just because Michigan is just like on another level. Like they're incredible. Duke, I understand a little bit of the hesitation with them because of the guard play. But they're still playing at a really high level. Like they turned over the roster and they're still just dominating. Arizona, we'll see what the Koa Pete injury is. I think he's supposed to come back next week or try and play next week. I don't remember who they play on Tuesday. Obviously, they got Houston this weekend in a big one, and Houston looks really good. However, Houston has youth. The 2 and 3 seeds, I think, like last year, a lot of people did take 1 seeds to all 4 1 seeds to make the Final Four, because they were heads above everyone else. Like Iowa State's right there. UConn has Dan Hurley as a coach, championship pedigree. They're always coming around during March. Illinois has the best offense in the entire country. Purdue was preseason number 1. Florida, to me, looks like the team that I'll probably be taking to the Final Four as of now, depending on matchups. But I do think that is a very good point there. From Husker Nation, 2851. Does Creighton need to win the Big East tournament to get in? They just beat UConn and have St. John's next if they win out and fall short in the tournament final. So that's a good question here. Let me find Creighton's resume metrics on here. I don't know if they have a chance, quite frankly. They're 74th in the net right now, and they, their strength of record is 69th. They're 78th in wins above bubble. That's just not quite close. You got to be around the 45 range. I know the win against UConn. If they were to beat St. John's and run all the way to the Big East tournament championship and lose to, say, UConn or St. John's, maybe I wouldn't classify them as like completely eliminated right now, but I highly doubt it. I think they'll probably have to win the Big East tournament. From Fatherly Barry 57, do you like UConn this year? Even with them losing to Creighton and having multiple close games against quad 2 opponents. So coming into the season, I really liked UConn. They were my preseason national championship pick. Actually, I really like the roster construction. However, what I've said about them for a while, I'm not sure if they have like any legit, like true, just NBA talent athleticism on their team. Like I thought Terrace Reed was going to fight Zuby Ejiofor for Player of the Year in the conference. I don't think he's quite all the way there yet. I don't think Solo Ball's a pro. He might, like, anyone can get there. Like Alex Caruso made it. Alex Caruso was a role player on Texas A&M. Solo Ball, like we said, could maybe get there. Alex Caravan, I know he's been mocked at like second round for a while. Braylon Mullins is the one where it's like, I'm not a big NBA draft guy. I'm not sure if he's projected to be like a first round pick or what. I think this team can still get there. What is so weird about this team is, Dan Hurley's a tremendous offensive minded coach. He's a tremendous coach everywhere. They're 13th at KenPom right now. They're 24th in offensive efficiency, which is actually climbing up. They were in like the 30s for a while, which is weird. They're 13th in defense efficiency, although their defense has really been struggling as of late. So they do fit that criteria to win a national championship. I'm not too worried about them come March time. However, I do think they're probably the second most vulnerable 2 seed behind Purdue as of now. I just did some rankings on like national championship, who I in order of who I think has the best chance to win it. I think I've had them at 8th, so like they're fine. I think they're there. They'll be a popular pick to make the Final Four as usual, but I'm not quite all the way there. From Colin Farrick, I know Michigan has to be the favorite, but I like Iowa State as my second favorite with the great point guard play to go with the shooter, a dominant forward. I 100% agree. I'm going to have another question on Instagram, so I'll kind of leave it for that about Iowa State. But yeah, their roster construction is really good. Taman Lipsey, veteran point guard, Milan Momcilovic, the best shooter in college basketball. Josh Jefferson, potential like first team All-American. Their bench is really good too. Nate Heisey, Jamarian Bateman is like sneaky, really good, knocking down some threes. Buchanan's really made some big steps as of late. Yeah, this team's really good. I like this Iowa State team. I'll talk about them here in a little bit. From Jay Simone, excuse me. Any world that UConn could still get a 1? How far could they drop? Does Creighton changing to a quad 1 to a quad 1 win, quad 2 loss help much? I do think UConn still has a path to a 1 seed. I wouldn't bet on it. Like I said, I wouldn't be totally shocked if UConn got a 1 seed tomorrow from the selection committee because they value that non-conference strength of schedule like crazy. It's always happens. Like last year, everyone was predicting Memphis as like a 7 or 8 seed. They had such a good non-conference. They ended up as a 5 seed. And when you look at their resume-based metrics, like UConn is 4th in strength of record, 4th in wins above bubble. You combine that with their terrific non-con, I wouldn't be totally shocked. And I do think there's still a path. I think if they win the Big East regular season, don't fall anymore and beat St. John's in that revenge game, and then you go all the way, you might still have to win the Big East championship. It just depends on what these Big 12 teams do. Like if Houston, Arizona, or Iowa State start falling off and Michigan just dominates through the Big 10, there's a path, but wouldn't say all the way there. Sports Talk, do injuries play into your bracketology, or are you not supposed to value injuries? I don't. I go off of the numbers. I go off of these team sheet numbers. Like I said, I'm not sure what Texas Tech is going to be tomorrow. I'm not sure where North Carolina and BYU would be right now. I have UConn or North Carolina and BYU as 6 seeds right now. Texas Tech is a 4 seed. I go based off of what the committee says tomorrow. So say they have Texas Tech as a 5 seed, I will switch them to a 5 seed. Obviously, I'm not just going to, make up my own. It's what I'm predicting the tournament will, or the selection committee will do. I don't base them into it because I don't think it's fair right now to put Texas Tech in that conversation, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do go into other things. Creighton from Mikey Man. Creighton also beat Nova at Nova. Yes, they did. Creighton can compete. I had them in the tournament, like at the start of Big East play, and then they really struggled for a while there. So I don't have them there, but they're playing better. Greg McDermott's a really good coach. From No One Important. I love this Nebraska team, but I'm personally worried about their consistency in big games once we get to March. Yeah, I agree. Like let's just first say it's awesome Nebraska's in this. Nebraska's getting court stormed. That's how good this Nebraska, Fred Hoiberg has done. This Nebraska team is really good. Yeah, it might be tough just with the athleticism edge towards some of these other teams. Like if you were to run into, say, North Carolina gets healthy with Caleb Wilson, just going up against that positional size is going to be really tough. Or you run into a Louisville who can shoot you lights out for 3. It could be a tough matchup with, say, a 3 seed, which they're probably going to be 3 or 4 seed, matching up against some of these other teams in the second round. But yeah, it's a great story for Nebraska, but we'll see just what their ceiling can be right now. Do you think we got any bid steals from Mikey Man? Do you think we got any bid steals from power conferences? There's always one that seems to pop up. However, just losing, it always seemed to happen in the Pac-12, and there's no Pac-12. So I don't think so. I don't think we're going to have any. I know that's crazy to say. Well, obviously, maybe we'll see one in the A10. Maybe we'll see VCU. But in terms of the power conferences, I don't know. I don't see anyone from the Big Ten winning outside of these top, 4 seeds or teams in the top 4 seeds that I have right here. I don't see that. The ACC, maybe you could get someone like a Virginia Tech sneak in there, someone like that caliber where Duke just kind of clocks out or they rest their guys or something. But I would definitely pick Duke, Louisville, or Virginia, in my opinion. Clemson hasn't been playing well, but can never count them out. I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see it. The Big 12 is obviously so top heavy in the SEC. I will be shocked if it's anyone but Florida, honestly, in my opinion. I think they're worlds above. Everyone else is the best team in the conference. And next up, I would pick Arkansas or Alabama right behind them. Vanderbilt's right there as well. So I'll be shocked if we have any bid stealers, but we'll see. From JV Plays, Duke has a tendency to win it all when the Final Four is held in Indy, 2010 and 2015, and Florida has made it to 2 natties, 2000 and 2006. That's a great fact. I did not know that fact. Yeah, Indy is. I've heard it's a really good spot for a Final Four. I wish I could get to Indianapolis one time to go to a Final Four, but I've heard it's a really good city, and obviously Duke and Florida, I've heard it's a really good city too. And you also said Michigan State has a tendency as well, 2000, 2010, and 2015. That's an interesting stat to kind of look at. Some of those teams with maybe a little bit easier travel. From playing devil's advocate, if Creighton won out regular season, they would still be minus 0.58 in WAB. That is what playing devil's advocate is for. This guy has a lot of college basketball knowledge. He gives me a lot of stats, knows a lot of stuff. So that is great to go and get that. Yeah, that's a good one. So probably Creighton would not be getting in. Ohio State Glazer Natty. Then I'm going to go to some Instagram comments. I get it. I have built-in bias, but I don't see Michigan as this Final Four lock. I could see them losing before the Elite Eight to an underseeded mid-major like St. Louis or Utah State or a flop defense. I've kind of like Michigan's number one in strength of record wins the bubble, BartTorvik. They struggled with Northwestern a little bit, which is strange. However, I like the only game that they lost is against Wisconsin, where Wisconsin shot lights out from 3. That's going to be the way to beat them. So if they run into an incredible shooting team who, has shooters 1 through 5 and can bring out a Daymara and Yaxel and Morris Johnson out to the 3-point line and just knock down a bunch of shots, you're going to have to make them. Otherwise, if you don't make them, Michigan is going to wear you down. Even I have a feeling this Michigan team, we're going to see them at one point, say it's Sweet 16 or Elite 8, and they're like, oh my God, they're down 7 at half. And then they end up winning the game by 10. Kind of like we've seen them do a couple times this season, just because they're exhausting to play against. They're, they crash the rebound. They crash the offensive glass with even their guards. They can knock down shots, but that's probably the biggest concern is their shooting. If they were to have a cold game, if someone else were to go hot, maybe, but Michigan just looks like another level. All right, Utah State Aggie fan news. Then I'm going to go over to the Instagram comments, I promise. How far do you think Utah State get in the tournament? How far would you think Utah State gets in the tournament? I really, really like this Utah State team. I think they're going to win a game. I do think they're going to win a game, and I think it's because the 10 seeds aren't all that great, in my opinion. Sorry, Miami of Ohio. They're still 84th at KenPom. Georgia is kind of the one that's a little scary. I don't think Indiana is all that awesome. I don't think Indiana is a lock to make the NCAA tournament either. I've seen some people have them as 9 seeds, not quite there. And then Auburn's 14 and 12, like we've talked about for a while. I think as a 7 seed, they got a good chance. And they're not a 7 seed I would like to play if I was a 2 seed. If I would love to see a UConn versus Utah State game. That would be a lot of fun. I think if Utah State, obviously if they get to the Sweet 16, it's been a fantastic season, but there's a chance. This team's really good. I'm probably going to pick them to win a game come March Madness. I like this team. Mason Falslev is just awesome. All right, moving on to some Instagram comments now. Then I will come back to the chat here in a second. I can't remember if I talked about this from Alec Falkenhayn, so we'll do it again. Do the Billikens road loss to Rhode Island impact March Madness seeding? Roll Bills. Like I said, I dropped them. I think I did talk about this. I dropped them from the last 6 seed to the first 7 seed, so did not drop them whatsoever. They should be an at-large team. JDG Wirt, what do you expect of Wisconsin in March? Here's my prediction for Wisconsin in March. They're a 7 seed right now. According to my bracketology, I think they'll be a 7 or 8 seed. They will play the 2 most entertaining games of the first weekend of college of March Madness, whether they're 7 playing against a 10. Give me Wisconsin versus Auburn. That is just doomed for 95 to 91 a game. And if Wisconsin gets by that, they're a 7 seed who could beat a 2 seed if they were to play a Purdue or an Illinois, get another high scoring affair. I know a lot of people have been saying this team could go to the Final Four. This team could also lose in the first round. I'm more of the opinion. I think they'll probably win 1 game, and that's about it. From Wyatt Burbicker, is Ohio State worthy of last 4 in? I don't think so as of right now. I would not be surprised if they were in the tournament. That's the wrong graphic. I'll pull it up right here. Like we said, 0-8 in quad one. That's just the big number. Predictives are solid. Resume-based metrics are very, very bubbly. 44 strength of record, 46 wins against bubble or wins above bubble, 52nd in KPI. All right, moving on. C Ferrick 17. Oh, we already got to this question. He is here in the live chat. Appreciate you commenting on Instagram and being here. So Michigan State, we talked about that one. At AJ 826, does 2 and 3 the rest of the way get Missouri in? I think it would put them very, very last team in, first team out, depending on which way it would go. 2 and 3 is scary. I would recommend going 3 and 2. We talked about their schedule a little bit earlier with, having to go to Arkansas. Excuse me, we did not talk about their schedule earlier, so I'll dive a little bit deeper into it. They have to go to Arkansas. They get a home game against Tennessee. They go to Mississippi State. They go to Oklahoma and a home game against Arkansas again. So they're projected to lose all 5 of these games, according to KenPom. So 2 and 3 would get you close. That's 10 and 8. It would depend on what the rest of the bubble is doing. I'm not sure if it would. I'm not sure if this would be good enough. I think if you go 2 and 3, you got to win at least your first game in the SEC tournament to feel decent about your odds. All righty. Moving on, Jack McPartland. Do you think Iowa State is an Elite Eight lock? Definitely not a lock. I wish I could lock them to the Elite Eight. I will be taking them to the Elite Eight if that makes you feel a little bit better. I really like this team. I talked about the roster construction. It's really good. Their bench depth is also solid with Bateman and Heisey playing a lot better as of late. We'll see if they have enough high-end talent to match up outside of Hilton. That's the big thing I'm looking for. I think they can do it, but we have seen them struggle a little bit outside of Hilton. I like them. I'm going to take them a while. I like their entire roster construction and just the way they play over there. All righty, let's move on and talk about Jay Simon back on YouTube. Just to comment on that last question about bid stealers, the one I'd look out for is someone other than St. Louis or VCU winning the A10 might be the best path. I 100% agree. I think A10 is probably your best option just because St. Louis, you're always playing for something, but they're not going to be playing for as much as these other teams are going to be playing for because I do think St. Louis is going to be an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. From Husker Nation, thanks for the Creighton info. Go Nebraska and Iowa State then, LOL. Yes, no problem. Sports Talk 4 comments back. I'm not sure what that is referring to. But moving on, Ohio State Glazer Natty. I have Florida as my current pick to win it all. It's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say. This team is really good. I'm curious to see how Xavier Lee shows up. Boogie Flynn has been atrocious from 3. Yeah, we'll see. This Florida team's really good. From Kyle 3452, love all your bracketology vids. Thank you very much. Has anyone told you look like Sal Frelick? Should I know who that is? I'm not sure who that is. He must have an ugly mug as well, though. But I'm not quite sure who Sal Frelick is. I'll have to look him up. Hopefully he's like a model or something. But thank you for the comment, and thanks for saying you like all the videos. From JV Plays, George Mason was technically in the Colonia in the CAA, and Davidson was in the SoCon when they made their runs. Yes. Yeah, George Mason. How about that one with Coach Larinaga? Iconic run there. That's actually the end of our questions right now. End of the questions on Instagram. Got through all of them. I'll stick around for a second, see if there's any more questions. Here's another one from Sports Talk. Any teams nobody is talking about that could win 4 or 5 straight games and play their way onto the bubble? I'd say Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech has a somewhat of a path. Actually, let me double check and pull up their schedule now. They're like 59th at KenPom right now after just getting drilled by Florida State. They lost that away game at Miami, Florida. After that, you get Wake Forest at home. Then you have to go to North Carolina. That's going to be the one that you're going to have to win. Then you play Boston College. If they can win those 3, I think you can put them in good position. But North Carolina is going to be a little bit vulnerable if Vasar's not back, and obviously Caleb Wilson's still out. So Virginia Tech would be a team that I can kind of look at. I will also mention Ohio State. Maybe Ohio State can make some noise. It's going to be a tough start because they have to go at Michigan. But from there, they go at Iowa. Iowa has struggled when they play really tough competition. Then they get a home game against Purdue. You win 2 of those 3 games, which is unlikely, quite frankly. And I won't comment on Jake Giebler, but unlikely. And then you move on and play at Penn State, and then a home game against Indiana, which you're expected to win. You win 4 of those 5. You're probably in a good spot there. But those would probably be my 2 picks that could get onto the bubble. The team that I would have said in this conversation was West Virginia until they lost a home game to Utah. West Virginia had a chance to play themselves onto the bubble. In terms of the rest of my bubble, I don't know if anyone has a real opportunity to get there. Cal is definitely 6 teams out. Like San Diego State might not even have a chance to get there. These first 4 out of the teams I'm looking at that maybe have a chance. Maybe even VCU might not have that much of a chance with, especially if they lose tonight, they pretty much have 0 to no chance unless they win their conference tournament. From Ohio State, Glazer Natty. The 12 seed or lower goes deep in the NCAA tournament. Who do you think it would be? Belmont. I would pick Belmont. I think Belmont has the capability to compete with some of these top teams. I think Belmont. A popular pick will be Yale. I don't see it with this Yale team this year whatsoever. Liberty has been playing lights out of late. I believe someone might have to fact check that they're the last undefeated team in conference play. They've already clinched the regular season conference in Conference USA. However, they're the luckiest team in the country via KenPom. When they have to play up, they had to play up against who'd they play? NC State, and they got drilled badly. So I'm not quite there on Liberty. I think it's Belmont. I think Belmont they kind of play like a power conference team, in my opinion, with the right draw. Sorry, Virginia, you're going to catch another stray if they were to play someone like a Virginia, just because they're very similar styles. They match up. If Belmont can knock down more threes than Virginia, maybe. And then if they were to draw, say, a 13 seed beats a 4 seed, or draw someone like Texas Tech, they're without their best player, but someone like that in that moment, maybe they could make a little bit of a run there. From Colin Ferrick, I don't know if you have mentioned, but do you have a favorite team of your own? And if you do, are they in the tournament? I've lived in Ohio my whole life. I live in Columbus, so Ohio State is my team. So if you're an Ohio State fan and you think I've talked about them a little bit negatively, maybe it's some reverse bias there. But yeah, it's frustrating. I would have them as the first team out right now, as I mentioned here. In terms of just like other teams that I really like, just like I like different teams from season to season. Like I always seem to like Houston just because Kelvin Sampson's great, and I just respect a lot of these coaches. Like I've always liked Kansas, like Bill Self. I'm obviously rooting for the Nebraskas of the world, but yeah, Ohio State is my team. So we'll see if they end up in the NCAA tournament. From no one important, I really like Stephen F. Austin as a bracket breaker if they end up making it. I'm not going to disagree. I like this team a lot. This team is 17-1 in the SoCon. They swept McNeese. McNeese is liked by the likes of someone like KenPom. They're 62nd at KenPom. They're winning basketball games. So we'll see about Stephen F. Austin. They're always, they were obviously great under Brad Underwood. We'll see if they can keep it going into March Madness. From JV Plays, I hope Virginia gets matched up with another purple team, 13 versus 4, like St. Thomas or SFA or something. That would be something, a little PTSD for that Furman game where everyone was taking Furman and I was a believer in Virginia, and then Kihei Clark turns it over. Furman gets the job done. We'll see if Virginia, I'm just really curious to see if Virginia is a 4 or 5 seed tomorrow. From B Don't Lie, prediction for Nebraska and the tourney. I would have them as 3 seed. They might end up being a 4 seed. I think they're going to win a game. When it moves on to the next matchup, I think they're going to have to get a good matchup to get to the Sweet 16. I'm not saying it can't happen because this team can shoot the lights out. Bryce Sanford can shoot you into a game. Jamarcus Lawrence can shoot you into a game. Rank Mast is obviously awesome. They've struggled a little bit as of late as people are starting to, scout them a little more, starting to figure out their scheme a little bit. But I think they're going to win a game. I think they have enough to win a game. We'll see if they can get to the Sweet 16. But yeah, any further than that, I won't take, but go for it. Pick who you want to win, and Nebraska is going to be, one of the more popular teams that people want to see win a game. From Sports Talk, it's hard for me to see a high major bid Steelers, but what mid-major conferences? Mountain West, A10, WCC, MAC. I think we're going to, I think this is a question of, what conferences will see bid stealers. I do think the MAC will get one. I think Akron's going to win the MAC tournament. Sorry, Miami. That's been my prediction for a while. I think Miami of Ohio is going to finish the regular season undefeated, go into the MAC tourney. I think Akron's going to get it done, and then I think we're going to see a 2-bid MAC. Maybe I'm just speaking that into existence, but that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I do think we'll see one in the MAC. I'm not sure about the A10 because St. Louis is just the best team, but VCU is another candidate. We'll see what happens tonight with that big matchup. WCC, I think it's going to be Gonzaga. Bad news for Gonzaga, though. It looks like Braden Huff might not even come back. I hope he does. At least, definitely probably not in the WCC tournament. We'll see if he can get back. Mountain West definitely has some opportunities because Utah State, they're going to be in my opinion, regardless. So San Diego State, New Mexico are going to have some stuff to play for. Grand Canyon, kind of watch out for them. And UNLV is always, a little bit of a pick, but they've been struggling as of late. Ohio State, Glazer, Natty. Ohio State misses the tournament. Do we move on from Diebler? I feel like I've had talent, but are on the wrong side of the bubble most years. I hate to, root for someone to lose their job, but I think Jake Diebler is going to be a good coach. He's just not there yet. Ohio State can go buy pretty much anyone. It's, I have no problem kind of rooting for Michigan this season, like just in general. I really like Dusty May, and Ohio State and Indiana were the favorites to get Dusty May. Ohio State decided to keep Diebler. Indiana decided to keep Mike Woodson. Michigan ends up getting Dusty May. He's got him as the number 1 overall seed in the tournament and the heavy favorite to win the national championship. So I can't feel bad for Ohio State, even though I am an Ohio State fan. I'm not sure if they will move on. I would say it's more likely than not if they miss the tournament that they'll move on. Just with the hires out there, Josh Schertz is going to be the most popular guy to get these big jobs, and Ohio State is able to pay that money. So I'm curious to see just with the talent that they have out there, and also Jared Calhoun. Sorry, Utah State, but you're probably going to have just, hold on to Jared Calhoun for this season because he probably won't be there next season with Cincinnati and maybe even Ohio State opening. So I think if they miss the tournament, they'll move on, but I'm not 100% sure. From Kyle 3452, do you think this year's Final Four will have all 4 1 seeds again? I do not think so. It's a very rare occurrence in general, but like last year, if you'd asked me the question, I still would have said no, just because it's not. I'm not going to act like, yeah, I knew that. But I do think, I just think that the 2 seeds and 3 seeds are very, very good this season. I have a feeling we're going to get 1 4 seed or 5 seed to get there as well, whether that's an Arkansas, because Arkansas, Darius Acuff, my God, he can do it. I know it's Alabama's been so up and down, but just their scoring ability with the right draws, maybe they can do it. They're not a team I'd like to play, although I don't think Alabama can win the national championship just because they don't have the post presence. Aiden Sherrill's been fine, but they just don't have enough, offensive rebounding. Tennessee could even do it. St. John's could do it. The 4 1 seeds are definitely, in my opinion, we'll count Iowa State as the 5th 1 seed. Those top 5 are your best teams in the country as of now. We'll see if that continues to be the trend. But last year, it was kind of man, it's hard to not fill these teams into the Final Four. We'll see if that's kind of the same case this year, but I would lean a little bit no. Who are your favorite 7 to 10 seeds that you think can make a run? I'm actually going to hide your comments so I can look at it here. I love St. Louis. I'm going to take them probably to the Sweet 16. But in terms to make a deep run, could they do it just like they did a couple seasons ago? NC State, I can't figure out why they're not that great. Quite frankly, this season. They're 19-8. They've lost a couple games that they shouldn't lose. This roster is really good. Quadir Copeland is now their best player, which is I don't know. Trey Holloman came from an Elite 8 school last year. Darian Williams came from an Elite 8 school last year. Van Allen Lubin came from North Carolina. Matt Abel's here. Terrence Arsenault came from Houston, made the national championship game. Quadir Copeland won a game last year for McNeese. I thought this team had a bunch of winners, and I thought it was a well-constructed roster. They have a bunch of talent, a bunch of, like I said, winners. So I'm curious to see if they really step it up. Will Wade won a game last year at McNeese with Quadir Copeland. I'm curious to see if they can do it. If I was a 1 seed, the one team I would not want to play on the 8 line in the second game, 8 or 9, would be NC State. My second pick would probably be Texas. I can't believe I'm saying this because I've been in the preseason, I was so all against Texas. I'm I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to give Sean Miller a year to just get rid of Rodney Terry's guys. This team is awesome on offense. They're 6th in the country in offensive efficiency right now via KenPom. This team is has some serious firepower because of the Dalen Swain just going crazy. I don't know what's gotten into Dalen Swain, but he's playing awesome. That would be the other team, NC State and Texas. So actually in this scenario, they would probably play each other in the first round. But if they don't, I think those are two teams to kind of watch out for. From Cully, I knew he'd be here. Is North Dakota State your national championship pick? I would love to see that. This team's really good. I am speaking into existence North Dakota State versus St. Thomas inside, for the Summit League championship. Get the two best teams together. North Dakota State with those 10 road wins. Team is really, really good and becoming the powerhouse of in the Summit League. St. Thomas versus NDSU. Hopefully we will see that in the championship game of the Summit League. All righty, that's going to do it. We went a little bit over an hour. If there's any more questions, I'll stick around for a second as I just kind of close up and speak, talk about some, just housekeeping things. We do have a website now, so check us out there at bracketscience.weebly.com. It's just all of my content on there at once. I've already posted the bracketology on there. I posted before this, so there's going to be little that's going to be released there before. Posting it on Instagram and stuff like that. And be sure to follow us on Instagram though as well at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Like the button before you head out, really helps us out. Subscribe to the show, turn on the post notifications. I'm going to do more live shows. I enjoy doing this. I like listening to other people's stuff. Like I said, there's a lot of ball knowers that follow this show. They know their stuff. So I like listening and talking about what you're also seeing. All right, got a couple more questions here, and then we'll close it out. I'll do these last three. Husker Nation 2851. Don't sleep on the Omaha Mavericks. I unfortunately haven't watched that much Omaha this season, but fun story last year. We'll see if they can keep it up. Ohio State Glazer Natty. Who are your favorite players that can take over the tournament almost single-handedly? Bring their team to make a run. The answer is Darren Peterson. He's the one guy that just comes to mind where it's yep, he just goes crazy and he can carry you to a Final Four. If he is on, he can get you to a Final Four. He is absolutely awesome, but will he play? It's a whole saga. He's got to get some continuity going as well. He's got to integrate into that lineup and get him to, play together as a team. Let him score 30 points, but also have Melvin Council score 20 points and Flory Badunga have a double-double. Stuff like that. So he's the obvious choice, but we'll see. Is he going to play? Not sure. Patty Randolph. How's Louisville men's basketball looking? So I have them as a 6 seed right now, but as the first 6 seed. So they're close to jumping up into the 5 seed range. Really good team, really good predictives. They can beat anyone. Michael Brown Jr. is on the craziest heater I've ever seen. Him and Darius Acuff. These freshmen are awesome. That's a team that you do not want to play if you're a 3 seed. If you're Nebraska, if you're Gonzaga, you don't want to play Louisville because they can beat anyone on any given night with their 3-point shooting ability. However, I'm not 100% all the way in there yet, just because of their little bit of lack of rim protection, a little bit of lack of physicality. But still a really good team. Would be a tough one. From Patty Randolph, her favorite team, seed line wise. Probably a fringe 5 or 6 seed right now. I think they're comfortably on the 6 line right now just because those 5 seeds have kind of separate a little bit. Sports talk. We're still talking questions. Who is your favorite mid-major that's not an at-large? It is Belmont. Belmont is my favorite mid-major team to be that won't get an at-large. They're actually closer than you might think, but they're really good. JV plays. I can't get Louisville's blowout losses. Tennessee 2 years in a row. Yep, I agree. Hard to trust them. They can beat anyone on every given night, but if they run into a really, really physical team like a Tennessee, they could struggle a little bit. I 100% agree with that. All right, that's going to do it. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button before heading out. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, asking a bunch of great questions, really, really good questions all the way through, including on Instagram. So thanks for being here. Enjoy this weekend of college basketball. Saturday is awesome. Go back and watch our review and preview show, just talking about this weekend and the seed line implications. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Till then, take care.